Okay, so it's time for the topic that makes everyone uncomfortable. And that's why I brought along the emotional support Puffin. We'll see how long he lasts. He has a tendency to want to be with me when I'm filming and then absolutely hate being with me and want out. So we'll see how long he lasts. But what is the topic that makes everyone uncomfortable? Money. I think maybe especially when we're talking about it from a Christian perspective, because that's when things like giving and tithing come into play as well. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. So, this episode is part of the 12-week summer series on godly business leadership. This series was inspired by this book called Leadership Not by the Book by David Green, who is the founder and CEO of Hobby Lobby, and how he has essentially broken all of the business best practices, especially when it comes to money, which you're going to see specifically in this chapter. We've already talked about a time when he made a mistake. He made some bad decisions financially, and God's blessing was temporarily removed from Hobby Lobby, and he almost lost the business. Which reminds me that you probably want to watch this series in order. So I'm going to go ahead and link up here to the very first episode of the series so you can start there and watch through. We are in chapter 3 of this book, which is titled Give Away Your Profit. This is not what we want to hear as business leaders and business owners, right? This is the scariest thing to hear because we're still struggling to make profit. And so this idea of just giving it away, well, it's not what we want to hear. We're going to start by looking at some verses in the Bible that remind us where our trust is supposed to be. Is it supposed to be in our money or somewhere else? And while I'm looking this up, I just want to give you a quick reminder. If you like this kind of content, especially if you're really liking this series, then do me a favor, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. Like the video, leave comments, let me know your thoughts, and just show me that this kind of content, that you like it and that you want me to do more of it. The first verse that I'm going to be bringing up here is from Philippians. I'm reading from the NLT, and this is Philippians 4:19. And it says, "And this same God who takes care of me will supply all your needs from his glorious riches, which have been given to us in Christ Jesus." So this is already starting to hint at the answer to where is our trust meant to be placed? In our money, in our profits, or is that trust meant to be somewhere else? And this is clearly showing us that our trust is meant to be placed in God. We're going to go ahead and turn to Matthew 6:31 through 33. This one's a little bit more familiar, I think, for a lot of us, maybe in a slightly different translation. "So don't worry about these things, saying, 'What will we eat? What will we drink? What will we wear?' These things dominate the thoughts of unbelievers, but your heavenly Father already knows all your needs. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need." And then adding in verse 34, "So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today." Ugh, ain't that true? And then I also want to just jump into the Old Testament for a second, into Proverbs, because Proverbs always has wisdom that is worth reading, right? So Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 9. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce." Then adding verse 10, "Then he will fill your barns with grain and your vats will overflow with good wine." Okay, so that's going to be kind of like key. If there was going to be a key verse to this episode, it's going to be this one right here. So I want to touch on a lot of different things. So obviously it's clear we're talking about the idea of tithing from our business income. Tithing as a business and not just as an individual, because whether or not you're tithing already as an individual, and we're going to talk a lot about tithing in general, and I'm not at all here to say that I have mastered the idea of trusting God with my money, because I still struggle with that just like anyone. But I have gotten into a routine of doing it for sure, and it has become something that guides me more than I ever expected it would. And so I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm obviously going to talk somewhat from what David had to say in the book, but also just my experiences and some of the things practically that have really helped me as I'm building my obedience with tithing. So we're going to get into some actual specific stuff here. So I know this can be kind of uncomfortable to think about. So just, if you're not ready fully to dive into this yet, just let this be seeds of thought. Let this be something that you marinate on and that you pray on for the next couple of weeks, months, and see where God leads you with it. Because, it's okay if you're not ready to dive in faith in this way yet. But if you are, then this might be your call to do that. And you could see, well, maybe you can't see, but our emotional support puff has returned as I've gotten more into the scary parts of this conversation. But one of the things that David Green tells us in the book, this was something that I did not know. I assumed that Hobby Lobby, being a Christian-owned business and very vocal about their faith, that they were tithing in some way. What I didn't know is that they give 50% of their profit every year. 50%, which obviously at their level of revenue is a ridiculously high, amazing number. But for any of us, when we think about whether it's our corporate income or our business profit or whatever it might be, 50%, that's a lot. And I'm not here to say that you should be giving 50%. And David's not saying that either. But it is amazing to see how successful they are and how much God is clearly blessing them, not because of the amount of money that they're giving, but because of the obedience in that. And one of the things that he mentioned in this chapter, and this is the specific quote that he said, and I'm going to kind of dive into this a little bit. He said, after the long-term debt bucket, and this is, if you remember from a previous episode here, we talked about when David made some bad choices when he was investing in the business. And so they ended up with long-term debt that almost sunk the company. And so he's referring back to that. He's saying, after the long-term debt bucket disappeared, we had more cash to put in the giving bucket. And this is an interesting concept because a lot of us think, okay, if I'm giving at a certain level, that I'm let's just go with the 10% that the Bible tells us we're meant to tithe 10%. And so we're paying all our bills and doing all the things and we're tithing our 10%, and then our debt goes down, right? We paid off that credit card, and so now we have more money, and it's natural for us to automatically put that money into our spending money, into our budget, into our groceries, or buying the things that we want, or going out to dinner more, or whatever it might be. And this is obviously from an individual perspective, not a business perspective. So let's just say from the business side, maybe it's investing in, I don't know, another microphone, or that email marketing platform that you've wanted that's just a little bit flashier than the one that you have, but it costs more money, right? All of these things, none of which is bad at all. But I think there's something to be said when the perspective of leadership in a business is that unexpected or additional profit doesn't automatically go back into the business, doesn't automatically go into someone's pocket, but instead is viewed as an additional opportunity to tithe or to give to God's kingdom in some way. Clearly, this is a practice that David and his team have been working on for a very long time, and their trust in God is solidified and definitely stronger than where mine is at this moment. That is their first thought, and that is how they give so much. And I don't think that, like, I'm not feeling that, oh, I'm supposed to be able to be at that level of 50% or anything like that. But I think just having that mindset that when we pay off debt or we have extra income, we get more clients or whatever it might be, that at least some of that can increase our giving, even if we're already giving what we're meant to be giving, because that is a minimum, not a maximum, right? I think just this whole concept of long-term debt going away, meaning we can give more, not that we're going to have more in our pocket, we're going to have more of a buffer. I think that's really cool. But I want to take this opportunity to talk about something that I have seen for too long in the business mentor space, something that has always rubbed me the wrong way and really, really bothered me. And I feel like it fits here. It's not in regards to tithing per se, but it's in regards to this long-term debt, this idea of running a business outside of our means, spending money that we haven't yet earned, because this is, like we talked about, almost put an end to Hobby Lobby, this massively successful business. And I have seen way too many business mentors, gurus, encourage their audience to spend money in order to invest in themselves. And I feel like this absolutely goes into the realm of self-care going way too far. It's not that the idea of investing in yourself and believing in yourself is bad, but it's when it's encouraged and done to a level that's irresponsible that I think it needs to stop and it needs to be called out. I also kind of suspect it a little bit because a lot of times when they're talking about all of this and how they themselves, maybe they tell a personal story about how, like I remember one mentor in particular talking about she had like, I don't know, $400 in her account or something like that. And it was like, they were just really, really struggling. And it was like coming down to, does that money go to replacing their broken refrigerator, which is kind of a necessity for providing for and caring for a family? Does it go to that? Or did she invest in herself in some business mastermind or something? She had to go into debt to do it. Now, in her case, according to her story, it worked out. And now she's doing really, really well and making all this money and is super successful. And she attributes it all to making that decision and stepping out in faith. And I have issue with that because I believe it happened for her that way, but that is certainly not the norm. That is not a responsible way of stewarding the money that God has entrusted us with. We need to provide for and take care of our families first before we invest in something to a level that we don't know if we're going to have any ROI. It's a very selfish way to handle things. I've always operated from the perspective of that my business income has to support my business. Like I invest my income back into my business, but if I haven't earned that money yet, I don't get to spend that money yet. I didn't get a nicer microphone or camera for my channel until I had the money in my business account to do it. I think it's amazing when these things happen for these people and God is clearly at work there and showing them that, you know, this is the direction they want them to go. That's amazing, but it's not a business plan. And so to encourage other people to do it, especially, and this is the part that feels a little bit sus to me, when you're telling those stories in a marketing call and you've just done a webinar where you're now trying to sell your workshop or your whatever it is, your courses, and you know they're a little bit pricey, and so you tell this story encouraging people to invest in themselves. It's like, okay, but that's a little self-serving, don't you think? Because you're telling me to take a risk and invest in myself, but that money, that investment is going to you. So it feels really icky. I'm not saying it's bad to put an initial investment in to start your business when it makes sense. But once you've been able to get up and running, you have the absolute necessities to get started. To me, again, this is personal opinion, but that's the moment where investing in yourself outside of your business income should stop. So even though this has been challenging for me in the past to stick to this philosophy, it has served me really, really well. It's kept me from feeling too stressed in my business. It's allowed me to show up with my clients in the way that I want to, mainly from a place of abundance versus scarcity or desperation. And it's allowed me to begin tithing from my business way sooner than I ever thought I would feel comfortable doing or be ready to do. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But like, why tithe from our business, right? I mean, why would God ask us to do that? Because if we're already tithing from our personal income, isn't that enough? Isn't it the same thing? And honestly, maybe it is. I'm not going to say it's not. There's nowhere in the Bible that I have found that says if you are a business owner, you should be tithing from your business as well as from your personal income. I don't know that, but I can absolutely see in my own business, and I can see in the story coming from David about Hobby Lobby, the impact of tithing specifically and intentionally from the business. But why might God want us to do that? And I think, this next quote from David kind of shines a little light on it, I think. He says, sometimes he, God, leads us to give up our resources so that we don't depend on them more than we do on him. And I think that is where it really comes down to. It's the same reason, I think, why God asks us to tithe in general. It's not because he needs the money. It's not even specifically because his church needs the money, although obviously churches need money to survive. But it's not about those things. God could further his kingdom and do all of those things. He could, open the path for churches to not need money to operate if that was his chosen path. But the reason that he asks us to tithe, I think, is kind of twofold. One, because it allows us to take some ownership and have some partnership in growing his community and spreading his word and, sharing his mission to bring as many people to him as possible to share eternity together. But I think the other side of it, I know the other side of it is because it's a faith step for us. It's an obedience step, and it shows us and helps us to depend on him and trust him more than money, because money is fleeting. We all know how money just somehow disappears and goes flying out of our accounts way faster than we realize. That's always the hardest part, is that trust. And so do we actually trust God to provide? That's the question we're asking when we're deciding, am I going to tithe or not? And, obviously we know the churchy answer is yes. We know that we can trust God to provide. We read that in the verse that we read earlier. And, we know that verse about, I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but like if God takes care of the sparrow, why would he not also watch over us? It's also that beautiful R&B song, His Eyes on the Sparrow, right? God provides for the animal kingdom. They don't make money. They don't need money to survive. So obviously he can and will do the same for us. But it's easy to say that as the churchy response. It's not as easy to do it all the time and to feel it all the time. So with our personal finances, now, I'm not going to get into numbers, obviously, because that's personal and, none of your business. But I kind of started with a more phased approach as I was working on building my trust in this. And this is similar to a while ago, I talked about doing this when it comes to like starting to observe the Sabbath as well. If it feels hard to go from 0 to an entire day or from 0 to 10% right away, then there is a way to kind of take a phased approach to it, to start with a little bit and, kind of work on building that trust muscle a little bit. So I absolutely did that with our personal finances until we got to a place where we were tithing 10%, and then here and there we tithe more than that. It just depends, right? So I'm kind of doing a similar thing when it comes to the business. I am tithing the 10%, but I'm doing it based on an average, because my business, just like many others, is not a consistent income like a salary would be. So there are some months where I make more and some months where I make less, but I tithe the same amount, so it kind of averages out. There are two philosophies that I have adopted that have really, really been impactful for me when it comes to our tithing. It's made it psychologically easier for me to ease into it and to build that trust muscle, but also the intentionality of it has really helped me to grow, I think, as a person and in my faith. And the first part of it is that I tithe a quarter of our total giving each week, which some months actually ends up meaning I give more than 10% because some months have 5 weeks, right? And I break it up weekly because it's easier on my budget and it's easier on my psyche not to see a huge lump sum go out in one pay period, but instead to see it kind of broken up smaller. It feels a little bit more manageable, a little bit less scary. But the other thing that I do is that I don't automate our tithing. Most churches have a way, whether it's through an app or through their website or whatever, that you can set up automated giving. And normally you would think that someone like me would totally be into auto pay because it's a set it and forget it. It's like automated obedience, right? But that's kind of exactly the point of why I don't do it, because I need that intentionality of feeling the trust and obedience on a weekly basis. It's more an intentional act of worship for me in that case. And it's also a reminder for me that even as I give that money each week after week after week, that we still always have enough. Even if some weeks are tighter than others, we still always have enough. And to that point, another quote that David said was, he says, "I believe God sometimes pares down our resources so that when we see success, we know it did not come from us." And I kind of like this because, some weeks and months are decidedly leaner than others. And I absolutely see the truth in this quote as a reality in my own business. So just to give you kind of a quick personal story from me, last year, or I guess maybe it was the year prior now, when I learned that I was going to be laid off from my corporate job along with my entire team, my entire department, before I knew that I had another job lined up, which fortunately for me happened very quickly. But before I had that, my business wasn't doing as well as I would have liked. In fact, my business didn't look at all the way that it looks today. There was a business model that I really personally wanted to follow and that I had been trying to follow, but it just wasn't happening for me. And the success that I have found right now and the business model that I'm following, it kind of grew out of my fear that I wouldn't find another corporate job and my business was going to have to replace my corporate income, which if you knew where I was at that moment, it was like not even remotely possible in my perspective at that point. But I started being a little bit more open to opportunities that were outside of what I had envisioned for my business. And God started bringing me opportunities that weren't even remotely on my radar, but that have turned into a more successful business than I expected. And that looks very different from what I wanted it to be at the time. But now I see the point of it, and it has now become something I couldn't even have dreamed of a year ago. But I want to be really, really clear about something. There's a quote from the very end of this chapter that I really want to make sure to echo and drive home. So he says, "Still, the Bible does not promise us more business success if we give more." And I really, really want to echo and highlight and drive home this statement. The idea that we will reap financial or business rewards because we tithe, because we give, is a corrupted philosophy around tithing that is often referred to as prosperity gospel. The Bible makes no promises whatsoever of financial gain as a reward for being faithful in giving. It just doesn't. It talks about rewards, but what it's talking about, what it's referring to, are the rewards that come in our soul, the rewards of increased faith, the rewards of more trust in God, a closer relationship with God, that sense of ownership in God's mission that I was talking about earlier. Those are the types of rewards that we gain when we are faithful in our giving. And I absolutely see these rewards when I tithe and when I am generous with my giving. Now, does that mean that occasionally unexpected financial provision doesn't come along? No, I've absolutely had times where I have given maybe more generously than I felt super comfortable doing. Not that I ever feel super comfortable tithing, let's be honest. It's still always a little bit of a to do it. But there have been times where I have felt called to give generously extra in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, there have been times where I have done that and I have unexpectedly had some sort of small financial windfall that offset it or whatever it might be. It happens, absolutely. But it needs to be very, very clear that that is not why we're tithing. We're tithing in obedience, we're tithing in worship, and we're tithing to be faithful. The rewards that we are promised are not financial, they are not business success, they are spiritual. So I just want to end with that. I know this is a difficult conversation to have, to listen to sometimes. So thanks for sticking with me to the end of this episode and to the end of this chapter. I don't know if more on this will come up in the future, but I would wager it probably will come up again on some levels. But next week, what we're going to be talking about is inspired by chapter 4 in this book. So make sure you come back for the next episode where we're going to be talking about taking the right kinds of risks and focusing on the things that actually matter instead of focusing on or becoming consumed with the things that ultimately don't matter at all. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching this episode all the way to the end, and I hope that you liked it, and more importantly, that you found it helpful. If you did, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with another Christian business owner that you know is going to love it as much as you did. God bless you.